I had to fight for it. When I contemplate that statement, several battles of unmatched ferocity flash through my mind. During my eventful 21 years of life, I have experienced many harrowing combats, each with their own unique foe. Each passing battle has only served to increase my ferocity as a warrior, and I doubt I would be the formidable combatant I am today without them. As it stands, most of the battles I have fought have been with the more wild portions of the Earth's populace, the only exception being a substantially drunken man at a bar in the seedier part of Brighton next to Denny's. He went down quickly, requiring little more than him tripping over his own foot and knocking himself out on a pinball machine, so I hardly consider that to be one of my greater bouts. Indeed, my greatest foes are often encountered on the course of my everyday life. When I was but a boy, this was manifested as that highly aggressive goose who attacked both the neighboring ducks and myself for the bread I was holding. That was either the first chain reaction set upon me by my assigned chaos entity, or I was too young to remember the ones before that. Now that I say it aloud once more, I believe assigned chaos entity doesn't quite roll off the tongue. As such, he shall henceforth be referred to as Daryl, with a Y. I'm sure he'll hate that, but he won't be able to strike me with any cars while the plague is about. This time, I have the upper hand. As I grew older, the scales of my respective combats tipped further in the enemy's favor, but I prevailed every time. I was beset by an entire hive of bees after doing nothing more than leaving my grandparents' home, but still I survived. I was chased by a deer with particularly large antlers in the forest near my home, but he failed to pierce my flesh as I escaped up a tree. It seemed like I would never know defeat. That was, of course, until I got the second job of my life. I became employed at a dog daycare, which I assumed would be wonderful work. And, for the most part, it was. My job consisted primarily of overseeing multiple dogs, and I was thrilled. However, there were some dogs, some dastardly, bordering on evil creatures, that frequently strived to make things worse for me on a nearly daily basis. One would coat the walls of his kennel with diuretic feces every time he stayed the night in the facility, and another had a penchant for escaping the compound by jumping the fence taller than I was, using their skills as an ex-racing dog. Despite their efforts, however, there was one dog who rose above the rest in terms of capacity for atrocities. Standing at a towering 10 inches from the ground, a small Pomeranian named Gertrude had a seemingly unending appetite for suffering. I saw through her act as soon as I saw her come through the door. She acted sweet, under the watchful eyes of my supervisor and her masters, but I knew better. Whether it was fate or the doing of Daryl, I somehow always ended up watching her. Now, I generally believe dogs are incapable of sin, but I also believe that Gertrude is an exception to that rule. Despite her size, she was capable of untold destruction to both my ankles and the peace of mind of the other dogs. I could never convince anyone she was a danger to those around her, so she kept being brought in. One day, Gertrude's desire to inflict pain grew too powerful for even her to contain, and she committed her greatest act of destruction. During the period of time when the dogs were allowed to swim, Gertrude put her plan into action. She attempted to drag another, slightly smaller dog into the pool by the straps of their life jacket into the pool against their will. I moved to stop her, but due to my aforementioned lack of cat-like reflexes, I found myself slipping on a pool of water. I flew directly into the hair-filled pool, immediately becoming soaked to the bone. Gertrude's plan came to fruition, and I suffered what I consider to be my first true defeat in combat. as for reasons I won't go into, the goose doesn't count. I also twisted my ankle.